Spirit Sports Consultants presents.
Why your NFL team sucks. This is our tongue-in-cheek look at each team in the NFL, looking at one flaw, at least one, that could prevent that team from going as far as you fans believe that they're going to go. Even the defending champion Eagles have flaws. The defending AFC champion Chiefs as well. And like we said, even the Super Bowl champions have problems. Definitely not on offense with Saquon, Jalen Hurts, and that offense should be unbelievable. But on defense, we have some concerns with the amount of personnel they lost. Lost Darius Slay. They lost C.J. Gardner-Johnson. That defense was dominant. Again, the Super Bowl shutdown with Chiefs really made the difference in the game. Defense might not be as good this year. That's probably the only weakness that the Eagles have this season. We predicted the Bengals would go 10-7 this season and get a wild card. We love what they do on offense. We have a lot of concerns with their defense. News about Trey Hendrickson not potentially being re-signed. That's a big issue. And then their classic, historic, slow starts. They tend to fade, do poorly in the first 3 weeks of the season. So their weakness one is the defense. Even if they have Henderson, they're one of the worst in the league. And the weakness two, they've got to get out to a quicker start if they have any chance of making the playoffs. And the defending AFC champion Chiefs also have issues. Not too many. It's tough to feel sorry for a team that's, won 3 of the last 5 Super Bowls, been to 4 of the last 5. But there are issues on offense, and we think they can correct them this year. But they weren't as explosive last year. If you want to take a look at their offensive statistics, we're going to zoom in on one. The yards per attempt number, 6.7. That tells you there's no deep threat. They haven't really thrown the ball deep, more underneath stuff. But with Rashee Rice coming back, we think that's going to change. We think the Chiefs might even be more explosive this season. And now for the viewer question of the week. Let us know in the comments and give us the reason why. Which NFL team do you absolutely hate? And hopefully you don't hate this video, but if you do happen to like it, please give us a like and then subscribe. We do provide weekly NFL picks, highlights, and sports travel. Thank you. As a general football fan, there are 2 teams in the league that frustrate me beyond belief, and I can only imagine how their fans feel. The Ravens in the AFC and the Lions in the NFC. The Ravens will lose games like this. I don't know what that play was. And then in the playoffs, they absolutely fall apart. We're voted the best roster in the NFL. We totally agree. But playoff failures, turnovers, 0-6 in the last 2 playoff losses. Until they correct that, the Ravens will continue to frustrate. The Detroit Lions are still rebuilding since 1957, still the SOL, same old Lions. A truly frustrating team. We've gone on 9 Lions road game trips and really have some sympathy for them, but they continue to frustrate. Put up 15 wins last season and could not even make it to the championship game. So you have this Jared Goff, who will continue to impress, put up great regular season numbers, but then you have this Jared Goff, who threw multiple interceptions and a shocking loss to the Commanders. So until they stabilize that, it's SOL all over again. Let's talk about the Buffalo Bills and reigning MVP Josh Allen. What an impressive season in 2024 Josh Allen had. We're looking for weakness here for every team. And it's tough with Buffalo. They are very, very balanced. We like the offense. If we had to find one, we really think if you look at their receivers, they don't have a true 1A game-breaking receiver like the Bengals. You could say they've got 2. You've got Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, both clear number 1s. Impressive. But with the group they've got, Palmer, Coleman, and Shakir, they're good, not great. And then we look at the fact that Josh Allen had a career low, we believe, we have to double-check the stats, of only 6 interceptions last year. But if you look at what they call turnover-worthy plays, had a lot higher risky plays that didn't end up being interceptions. We wonder if those numbers might turn back around, because typically he averages anywhere between 10 and 15 interceptions per year, not 15, more like 10 to 12. And 6 is really, really low. Will that number come back, more like the average, and will those receivers be able to separate? That's the only weakness we can spot with the Bills for this season. The LA Chargers, there really weren't too many weaknesses last season. They did a great job in Jim Harbaugh's first year, made the playoffs, disappointing playoff loss, but really impressive. If you look at their stats defensively, offensively, they're really good. We like what Harbaugh was doing with balancing the run and the pass, really establishing the run, and then protecting Herbert. He didn't have to throw as much. But if we had to find a weakness, it would be just that, what we just said about Herbert. We think maybe not throwing as much as he was used to. They get a little bit out of rhythm. You saw that bad performance in the playoff game. And we're not sold on the receivers. Johnson has a history of drops. McConkey was pretty good, but that's just the one option. And we wonder if the Chargers have the receiving options in the passing game to compete with the teams in the AFC West like the Broncos and the Chiefs. They've got the defense to match with those teams, but do they have and the running offense, but do they have the passing offense? That's the only weakness that we can identify for the Chargers. Minnesota Vikings going into the 2025 season really have a solid roster. When we looked at this trying to figure out an area of weakness, it was difficult to pinpoint, but the one you have to look at is quarterback. And we don't think it's an issue yet, but it's definitely a risk with a quarterback that's starting for the first time. He's effectively a red shirt rookie, and that he sat out all last year due to injury, got to sit and watch. So it's not totally new to him, but playing is. But we think with the coaching of Kevin O'Connell, it might be kind of a slow start, maybe the first 4 or 5 games you might see it. We think J.J. McCarthy has the potential, again, with great coaching, to be a pretty good quarterback in the NFL. So we're going to mark that as a risk, not a true problem quite yet for the Vikings. The 49ers are a completely different looking team than the team that was in the Super Bowl just 2 years ago, and in our opinion should have won it if not for a bad McCaffrey fumble early. But when you look at this team, we have concerns with the receivers, and it really comes down to injuries, right? They can't control that with Brandon Ayuk being out, and then perhaps second year Ricky Pearsall perhaps being out to start the season. So, and then of course losing Deebo Samuel in the offseason, that gives you basically Kittle, and then out of the backfield, McCaffrey. And, of course, McCaffrey's an injury risk. So our concerns are with the receiving group for the 49ers and then Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy's he puts up great numbers. Look at the statistics last season. We're good considering all the injuries, but sometimes throws the key interception and hasn't necessarily proven he belongs among the elite quarterbacks. We're not saying he doesn't. We're waiting to see confirmation of that. So those are our concerns with the 49ers for this year. We weren't all that bullish on the Seattle Seahawks prospects for this season until we really took a deeper dive and looked at the personnel moves they made, and then the fact they brought in Clint Kubiak as their offensive coordinator. But if you look at probably the biggest risk for the Seahawks this season is the quarterback, Sam Darnold, and we think he could go either way. He could either have a playoff year or totally collapse, and then Jalen Milroe come in there and kind of take over. But we think what Kubiak can do with that offensive line, which was a weakness last year, is change the blocking scheme to his zone blocking scheme, play more to their strengths, and give Darnold the protection that he not necessarily got with the Vikings last year. Had to tend to hold the ball too long and really was not efficient in that regard. But if they can clean that up, this potential weakness could be a strength for the Seahawks. A lot of excitement in Boston with the Patriots showing a lot of potential with Drake May and a lot of the offseason moves. I think Drake May definitely has the potential, but let's look at one of the flaws we see. Take a look at the Patriots offense, but there's a lot of excitement with Drake May. Had a really good rookie year, showed really impressive mobility and deep ball accuracy. But we're going to focus on the Patriots receiving group. We looked at a couple of scouting sites, and Patriots receivers and tight ends are ranked towards the bottom of the league. And we think we're going to start with Stephon Diggs, coming over from Houston, where an ACL tear interrupted what was a pretty good season with the Texans. But you have to look at the fact that Diggs he's got the marquee name, obviously the reputation, but he's also 31. Coming off an ACL tear, going to a new team. We cannot think it's going to be a plug and play where he's going to play like his old Buffalo and Minnesota days right away. So we think that they will struggle there. We love what the Patriots have on the defensive side. We think the passing game is going to be a little slower than a lot of people have predicted. We're going to talk about two teams at once here. We have two NFC South teams with the Falcons and the Bucs. We're doing them together because they're playing Week 1, and they both have the same weakness, and that is pass defense. If you look at both these teams, both are in the lower third. So we think one's ranked 22nd, one's ranked 21st. The rankings, obviously, that's inconsistent, and it's very subjective. But we see that, and we kind of understand it. Look at the pass defense statistics, allowing 224 a game, and then 6.9 yards per attempt is not too bad, but still, it's like we said, in the bottom third. And similarly with the Bucs, you see they allow 244 a game, 7.1 yards per attempt, a little bit worse than what the Falcons allow. Where the Buccaneers excel is their run defense. That's why we got Vita Vea highlighted there, right there in the middle. They jam the run. That's why they're great against teams like the Eagles that are a run-first type team, but they struggle against the passing teams. That's why we're highlighting this again. Bucs Falcons playing Week 1. I think with both of these teams having a weak secondary or below average secondary, it's a great opportunity to take the over. We have two risks for the Chicago Bears this season. We think the first is going to be Caleb. Again, he and Ben Johnson take off right away with that new combination. We think it'll take probably halfway through the season before they really start to click. But our real concern is the pass defense. In the division with the Lions, Packers, and Vikings, giving up 7.9 yards per attempt towards the bottom of the league. We wonder if that statistic was thrown off by this one play that Bears fans don't want to see again. But the pass defense is definitely a concern playing in that NFC North tough division. So the Houston Texans' primary flaw has got to be the offensive line. Not that we know the offensive line is bad, but based on performance in 2024, that was what kept them from being better. Even though they won the AFC South, that's what kept them from being the Chiefs. We can complain about the officials and some questionable calls all we want, but really with that offensive line, C.J. Stroud was not himself. He really did not have the time to step into throws. You could tell he wasn't comfortable back there, and far more sacks than he ever should have taken. So if they can address that one need, they made some changes. They traded their prize asset Laramie Tunsil, which a lot of people question, but we saw a lot of penalties and a lot of bad plays from Tunsil last year. Even though he's got the marquee name, we understand that they might have done a good job of trading high in that instance. It'll obviously remains to be seen. We think the Texans' primary flaw is offensive line. Let's talk about the Dallas Cowboys, the so-called America's team. We think they should have to give back that nickname. But a lot of people pick on Dak Prescott. We actually think he's going to have a better year this year, adding George Pickens. We think that offense is going to be explosive. We're going to focus on the weak rush defense. You see, we've highlighted here. Last year, 4.8 yards per carry, over 137 yards per game. That is not a good weakness to have in a division with the Eagles and the Commanders. I think that's going to be a problem, but also losing DeMarcus Lawrence. Looking at the LA Rams, it's good news pretty much all over the place. If you look at that offense, we think so highly of Matthew Stafford, then adding Devontae Adams to go along with Puka Nacua, and then what they can do offensively. Sean McVay, probably one of the top 5, if not higher, play callers in the entire league. And then that front 7 really came on in the second half of the season. A lot of pressure. Look at what they did against the Eagles. They came up short, but they really gave the Eagles a run for their money in that divisional playoff game. But if you want to find a weakness, and that's the whole point of this video, it's got to be the defensive secondary. That's part of the reasons we've highlighted this game here. We like the Texans against the Rams, even though everybody's high on the Rams. Got to look at the fact that the Texans have the first or second best secondary in the league. The Rams are ranked around 25th to 28th, depending on what you look at, and can be exploited. Now, they get to the quarterback with the front 7, definitely possible with a team with a weak offensive line, as the aforementioned Texans. But otherwise, they definitely can be victimized by a pass-heavy team, and we think the Texans could take advantage of them in that regard. As for Packers fans, you really don't have any major weaknesses, but there are a few minor weaknesses I'm going to point out. So until Christian Watson comes back with the wide receiver group, Matthew Golden, first-round pick, that should be a great add, but typically rookie wide receivers don't come in and make a splash right away. It takes a while, but once Watson comes back to go with Golden, that should be a really good receiving group. And then I guess the similar concerns we have with players like Jared Goff, Jordan Love, we've seen it's been very inconsistent. We've seen great performances, we've seen mediocre performances, and he needs to stay healthy. He got injured in week 1 last season, kind of set them back a little bit. But this is a team that definitely can go 10-7, 11-6 this season. Take a look at the Tennessee Titans and try to identify their biggest weakness. There's been a lot of optimism with teams getting rookie quarterbacks and having successful first seasons, like the Commanders with Jaden Daniels and the Texans 2 years ago with C.J. Stroud. But the difference in those situations was they had more of an established receiving core. We just checked the statistics on that, and several places have the Titans receivers ranked in the bottom 3 of the NFL. One has them dead last. We think that's not too good for a rookie quarterback coming in. And then we think that with also issue with Will Levis being out for the entire season, there's no backup quarterback option. So it's really all on Cam Ward to see that he can really make a difference as a rookie. So we think that weakness with the wide receivers and then no backup quarterback or established backup quarterback would be the Titans' primary weaknesses. The Denver Broncos had a surprisingly great season last year. Bo Nix with a great rookie season, but that defense was totally dominant, so we're not going to point out any shortcomings on the defensive side of the ball. They're ranked in top 5 in almost every category. Most people have them number 1 for the secondary, and the front 7's right there. They led the league in sacks by a margin of 20. It was huge. So we can't find any faults there. But on the offensive side of the ball, we look at what Bo Nix did last year. Very impressive. But the questions we have are at receiver. Behind Sutton, we're not sure where the depth is, where the second and third options would be for Bo Nix. And then another concern would be having R.J. Harvey as a rookie running back. You never know what you're going to get from a rookie, so that's a concern. But really the receiving options, adding Evan Ingram at tight end should give Bo Nix some help, but we're not sure if the other receivers behind Sutton are going to be able to give Bo Nix enough options. With the Arizona Cardinals, we have a few weaknesses we would discuss. On defense, for example, they added Josh Sweat and a few other players, but we're still not sure how strong that overall group is, so we need to watch that early. But our primary concern is the offense. We think they've got the receiving options with Marvin Harrison Jr., got the running back with Connor, one of the best tight ends in the game with McBride. But until Kyler Murray plays week in, week out like a top 10 quarterback, we're not sure how far the Cardinals can go. We predicted they would go 6-11 this season. They could definitely do better than that. They could do as well as 10 wins, but Kyler's got to be consistent from week to week, and to this point, he has not been. And we're going to say the same thing about the New York Giants. We said about the Vikings. We'll give them the benefit of the doubt at the quarterback position. You can start the season with either Russell Wilson or Jameis, then maybe turn the ball over to Jackson Dart midway through the season or whenever they feel that he's ready. So our risk we're going to identify as the pass defense. If you look at the Giants' front seven, one of the best in the league, then you look at that secondary, it's bottom third in the league. So if they can just improve that secondary, this overall defensive unit could be top 3, top 2, but until then, the secondary is their primary weakness. When we look at the Jacksonville Jaguars, there's one flaw that we see that jumps out at us, and we know firsthand, having gone to a few of the Jags games in person. We were stunned a few years back. We went to a game between the Jags and the Chiefs. We expected that to be a shootout. Ended up being a 17-9 dud. Part of that was the humidity and the rain. But we saw about 5 or 6 overthrows that were so bad you couldn't even capture it on TV. I mean, receivers open in the end zone, balls sailed over the head, and a couple turnovers that were terrible. We really left that game being very disillusioned by Trevor Lawrence. Really, we think this is the last year. No more excuses for Trevor Lawrence. We think he's got to prove he can belong at least in the top 10, top 12 of quarterbacks, and which we don't think he's there yet. One thing that we're concerned about for the Carolina Panthers, especially if you're a Carolina Panthers fan, it would be the quarterback position, Bryce Young. There's 2 ways to look at the end of last season. On the optimistic side, had a great finish, had 3 really good games. You can make the case that they should have beaten the Eagles, and they only lost to the Chiefs by 3. Very impressive what happened late. And then the addition of McMillan to go along with Adam Thielen and Leggett, hopefully I said that right, should give Bryce Young some good receiving options. But what we saw in the prior year and a half of work is very concerning. We saw an indecisive quarterback who ended up scrambling more than he should, made errant throws. Not totally surprising for a rookie, but it's still, a rookie, a second-year player. But still, we wonder, in this 3rd year, can he make the next step in his development? We feel the same way about Trevor Lawrence. Some 2 quarterbacks who were the number 1 overall pick haven't really shown us that yet, that compared to players like Jaden Daniels and C.J. Stroud. So those are concerns. We'll know early whether Bryce Young is a guy. This could be his last year if he doesn't improve. A lot of excitement in Las Vegas for this Raiders team. We definitely think this team is going to be more exciting than in years past. We love the fact bringing in Pete Carroll, obviously a successful head coach, Super Bowl winning coach. Geno Smith stabilized that quarterback position. You got exciting players like Brock Bowers already. You're adding running back Ashton Jeanty. He could be dynamic. Geno Smith gives you a lot more stability, flexibility back there. The problem we see with the Raiders, especially playing in the AFC West, they have a bottom 5 ranked pass defense. It's not great when you're going up against Patrick Mahomes, even Bo Nix and Justin Herbert in that division twice a year. So we'll see what happens with that pass defense. For the Cleveland Browns, we all know that they have issues at the quarterback position, but we think with those 4 potential starters, they got to find a good player there. They might start out with, say, Joe Flacco, turn the reins over to Shedeur Sanders late, but we think if they can put up anything from the passing game, they could overshadow their true weakness, which we think is the poor running game, averaging only 4.1 yards per carry. They do have some optimism with the fact that Jerome Ford did well. He averaged 5.4 yards per carry, so maybe they should lean on him more. But they have concerns with their draft pick. I'm not sure what his legal status is going to be, so that's the primary issue for the Browns. The Miami Dolphins. Just a reminder, if you're visiting the Miami area for a road game, Fort Lauderdale is closer to the stadium and a lot more fun, in our opinion, than Miami Beach. But for the Dolphins this year, we think they have a couple issues in the secondary. They just traded Jalen Ramsey, but they got Fitzpatrick back, so that might be a wash. But our big concern is with the offensive duo, the duo that makes the team go, Tyreek and Tua. Are their chemistry issues resolved? Are they going to be back? And can Tua stay healthy? Very important questions. The Colts had an unimpressive season in 2024, going 8-9. They've got flashes like with Jonathan Taylor, the running backs, where they're highly rated. A lot of other areas they're not rated very highly. And we're curious what they're going to do at the quarterback position. Anthony Richardson has some raw talent. Maybe they can pair him up with Daniel Jones to have one of those 1A, 1B options. But we're going to look at that as the real primary weakness. We looked at their schedule last year. They were had 4 games that they could have won to go from 8 wins to perhaps 10. We think if Daniel Jones can play like his 2022 self with the Giants, this is definitely a wild card candidate. If not, if he plays like he has the past couple of years, this team is going to be rebuilding. Quick quiz. How many of you out there remember that the Saints started out last season 2-0 and were favored in Week 3 against the future champion Eagles? This season is going to be completely different. This should be a rebuild. The Saints should really look towards the future here. You've got Derek Carr retiring, Tyrann Mathieu retired. We think 3 factors are here. We got a new quarterback, a new head coach, and then you have to look at the factor. We're not accusing them of this. This is what we would do. We were the GM of the team. We would just tank for the number 1 pick and look to, expedite the rebuild. There's really no honor in trying to go 4-13. Looking at the Washington Commanders, it's tough to find too many problems with them. What a great season in 2024. That was our surprise team of the year. They and the Denver Broncos, probably the Vikings in there as well. But the Commanders really impressive. Jaden Daniels, we liked him all the way back in his LSU days. We saw that. We thought he should be the number 1 overall pick. It's easy to say now, but we said that last summer. But the purpose of this video is to find flaws, and we're going to look at the wide receiver group. On the plus side, you add Deebo Samuel Jr. That gives you, not only do you have a deep threat, you also gives you the ability to do jet sweeps and some kind of creative plays out of the backfield. We're sure Cliff Kingsbury is ready to run plays like that. But our concern is more with Terry McLaurin. We are recording this early August. We wanted to wait late on this to see what the status would be. So by the time we record this and it's produced, he may have been traded already. But that would be a real downside, because obviously that was Jaden Daniels' best target last year, and that takes away their more established receiver, and that could be really bad, killing the chemistry and the momentum that the Commanders built up last season. One other factor to look out for: the Commanders had a lot of luck last season. Could that flip around? The Hail Mary, of course, we alluded to that, and they were really good in one-score games. So we'll see if that holds up this season.
That's all for this time. Thank you for joining. Please subscribe to our channel, and we look forward to sharing our future videos with you.